Welcome to the lesson on creating new dishes for your menu. As we go through this lesson, there will be many ideas and options presented, so you may want to have the course toolkit open to take note of what you may want to explore further. A good and easy place to start is actually with traditionally plant-based dishes. This way your customers may already have some familiarity with it, and thus less consumer education may be needed. In the Middle East and Greek food, falafel with tahini or hummus are examples of fully plant-based dishes that have wide appeal. Of course, if serving with pita bread, you'd want to check the ingredients. I find most are fully plant-based on default. In Ethiopian and Eritrean foods, you'll find injera bread with various deliciously spicy foods to scoop up. South Indian food is filled with many amazing curries featuring high-protein lentils and legumes. In Italy, pizza crusts are traditionally plant-based, and pasta with various tomato-based sauces are great go-to crowd pleasers. Of course, desserts too, for example, Thai mango sticky rice, totally plant-based. Another advantage of choosing these traditional foods is that they are generally made of more whole foods, and thus the ingredient costs are lower, and as a bonus, they're often a little bit healthier as well. So these are just a few examples to get you thinking. Every culture has some traditionally plant-based foods, or maybe can be made fully plant-based with small modification. One important thing to note is if you feel you will have a significant number of Buddhist vegetarian or Jain customers, in addition to meat and eggs, they avoid several plant-based ingredients like garlic and onion due to their religious beliefs. Thus, you would want to research that more and have plant-based options for them that avoid those, or develop your dishes so that they can be easily omitted by modification. Your next step would be to start finding inspiration by researching these dishes and seeing if any would be a good match for your brand and customers. There are tons of recipe books out there now, generally marketed as vegan or plant-based as the keywords when you search. Another great source of inspiration is social media, where one hashtag can help show you the diversity of plant-based foods. Especially helpful can be two apps, which also have websites, abillionveg.com and happycow.com. Both of these are review platforms for plant-based food. Happy Cow focuses mostly on plant-based restaurants, while A Billion Veg focuses more on highlighting plant-based dishes at non-veg restaurants. You can explore any city in the world and find out what other restaurants are serving and see what dishes are popular from the reviews. If you're not sure where to start, some places known for incredibly creative plant-based foods are London, San Francisco, Melbourne, and Ubud in Indonesia. When developing new dishes or modifying your existing dishes, you may want to explore the alternatives to meat, dairy, and eggs out there. And there are a lot. Starting out with meat, there are some traditional foods that chefs find as good meat replacers. Tempeh is an Indonesian fermented soybean product. Just like meat, you would marinate it and flavor it. It has a more dense and internally varied texture than tofu, and thus has more bite. It's often good to replace meat strips in sandwiches, patties in burgers, or chunks in curries, but it is very versatile and can be cut into various sizes. If you are looking for something like pulled pork, young green jackfruit is excellent. Of course, tofu is a great meat replacer, but to replace meat, you would want to use the extra firm versions, and some chefs like to freeze and then thaw and drain the tofu to create an even meatier texture. Seitan is another product made of wheat gluten. It can be pre-purchased as you see it here, but often chefs prefer to get the raw powder form and then marinate, cook, and shape the seitan to fit the dish they are preparing. There are other products somewhat similar called TVP, which stands for textured vegetable protein. Mushrooms are also a great meat replacer in stews, soups, and curries. Those large portobellos can even be used to replace meat patties in burgers. Now, the ones I've mentioned up to now are not designed to taste exactly like meat. They replace, but bring their own textures, flavors, etc. to the food that people still find enjoyable. But let's say you want a meat dish to taste like a meat dish. The next alternatives are developed to be indistinguishable from animal products. Mycoprotein is a class of protein made from fungus, and corn is the leader in this space. Here are just 3 examples of their fully plant-based products, so you can see it's quite versatile in its application. For beef replacement, the two that are most well known are Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. In taste tests, meat eaters can't distinguish them from real meat, so these exemplify high standards. They also distribute in ground beef or in patties, so they can be used in any way beef would normally be used in various dishes. There are other beef replacements out there now, but too numerous to mention here, but our course toolkit lists a few others. For pork replacement, there are a few again, but the best known is OmniPork, sometimes named OmniMeat in some markets. This is a minced form, but they also have some luncheon meat replacers, and other companies do have other options. For chicken, there are many options from Corn, Beyond Meat, and many others I've mentioned already, but a company, Huera, in Spain, has created a diversity of options. On the seafood side, Sophie's Kitchen has a variety of plant-based options like the salmon you see here. As the plant-based options are exploding now, this is just a teaser of what's available out there. Some of these new products have limited availability in some parts of the world, or sometimes only the consumer packs may be available instead of the service packs. So the key will be for you to see if they have an office or a distributor in your country or not. If they are in your country, you can often request those samples, and in some cases they may even offer training and demos. I should note that, especially in Asia, there are many plant-based meats that have been produced for decades already, and many of these are far cheaper than the ones being developed in the Western countries. So do look into the availability of those. Many of them are produced out of Taiwan, China, and Malaysia. So let's jump over to egg alternatives. If you're looking for scrambled eggs and a more whole food option, often softer tofu is mixed with some firmer tofu, as when cooked it produces a similar texture. For flavor, chefs add a bit of black salt to bring in some of the sulfur that give eggs their distinct flavor. Tofu can also be used to replace the egg in quiches. The closest replacement for eggs is just egg, which is more versatile than tofu, as you can see here. If you're baking and using eggs as leaveners or binders, there are tons of options out there. From flax eggs to cornstarch to aquafaba, which is pictured here. It's just actually the brine from chickpeas, which apparently helps to make amazing meringues. There are tons of options. Some options are in powder form and blends of the various options mentioned. Because eggs are used for so many different purposes, you'll want to experiment and see which is best for your specific dish, or save some time and adopt tried and true recipes that are already plant-based. Over to the dairy side, the options are endless. From coconut to soy, oat, almond, rice, quinoa, macadamia, cashew, avocado milks, and more. Prices and availability vary widely, though some chefs simply choose to make their own by blending their preferred nut or grain. Some are higher in protein like the nut milks, while some are higher in fats like coconut. So you'll want to see what works best for your application. For example, for making buttermilk or yogurt, a higher protein milk would be best. If you're serving coffee, lattes, etc., you may find some work better than others when mixed with hot drinks. For example, some may separate or curdle more than others. There are now several barista blends and creamers available as well that you could look into. Something new emerging in the market now are milk proteins produced by yeast instead of animals. The example here of Perfect Day essentially means you are creating real dairy without the use of animals. This paves the way for a future of identical to dairy products that are vegan friendly. On the ice cream side, again, there has been an explosion in the space, and there are many options out there, even from big names like Ben & Jerry's. There are entire books out there as well on how to make your own plant-based ice creams if you want to create something bespoke and unique. There are options out there as well, whether it be cheese, sour cream, cream cheese, yogurt, etc. Daiya is one of the most widely available brands. On the butter side, there are tons of plant-based butter alternatives as well. If you go for margarines, a common issue with them is containing skim milk powder or being fortified with animal-based vitamin D, but there are many available without those. Now we've taken a quick look at what options there are for you to replace meat, dairy, and eggs in dishes. Now we need to focus on ensuring the dish is nutritionally balanced, filling, and appealing to meat eaters. This isn't a nutrition course, but the one rookie mistake I often see is a lack of sufficient calories. On average, plant-based foods have less calories than animal foods. If you compare the two, say, equivalent burgers, and you replace a meat patty with, say, a portobello like we saw here, the calories will be way lower in the portobello burger, and it will be less filling. Myself, I've encountered this way too many times when I've had to order two mains just to get enough calories. So in this case, you would want to fix this by perhaps increasing the portion of a side, or have something like more fries, or add more patties or toppings to make that burger have sufficient calories. So at this point and over the last few lessons, I've been throwing a lot of information out there on how to create successful dishes with wide appeal to flexitarians, vegans, vegetarians, etc. wanting plant-based food. To help consolidate this, I put an appendix at the end of the course toolkit that looks like this. In short, it's a simple checklist of considerations as you develop a dish, all organized in one place. If you tick all of those, you've set yourself up for success. A couple items on this checklist relate to adding creative flair to differentiate your food from your competitors. Of course, some of this is basic marketing, but I'll try to give some guidance here that is more specific to plant-based menus. Starting with your unique selling point, which may already be related to your brand. What I suggest is, again, using a Billion Veg and Happy Cow and seeing what restaurants in your area are already offering. You may notice an oversaturation of certain foods, in which case you may want to choose something else. Or you can try to innovate and make a common dish stand out compared to what the others are doing. Vegans and vegetarians also love to share food pictures, so you want to think about the overall presentation to make it Instagram worthy. It not only helps in terms of free organic marketing, but it actually plays an important role in how much your consumers rate your food. This was actually measured a few years ago in a study where they took the same 17 ingredients for a salad, arranged them in various different ways. The result was a significant difference in how much people enjoyed the food when it was arranged more beautifully. So think about what plate, if there will be garnishing, how it will be assembled, etc. To end, our key point is you can get inspiration from traditional foods and new innovations to create dishes that are filling and appealing to flexitarians and plant-based eaters.